We're almost to the finish line. Are you going to make it? Welcome to part 11 of the Tummy to Tuck series. I am Travis Wright Colopy, the Executive Director of Fit and Able Productions, and we are almost there. After this episode, we have just one more week to go, and we will have reached the finish line. At the very least, we'll have reached the finish line for the 12-week period we set for ourselves, and hopefully we'll have also reached the finish line for the goal we set for ourselves as well. That, after all, is what we want to get out of it. There is no real achievement in just having time pass. It's going to happen anyway, as after all, it is literally just a matter of time. What we want out of that time, though, is actually having worked for something and achieved it. We have already increased the intensity with our exercising, our training plans, our work, or whatever it is we are trying to achieve. And we should be going towards our goal full steam ahead. If we haven't already ratcheted up, it's probably a little too late now to make up for lost time. But depending on what your goal actually is, this last little stage can differ for what you should be doing. But mostly what you're doing right now is just the mental prep of getting yourself all the way to the finish line. Yes, you've been at this a long time. You're tired. You're sore. You might be feeling close to burning out. You might have given up a whole lot of things that you enjoy in life in order to be able to focus on just driving towards this goal. You can start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and almost feel like you're at the finish, and your body knows it. But you don't want to give in to that, and as we said in the last video, you want to go strong all the way across at the finish line. You're not going to stop on the line, and you're most certainly not going to stop before the line. But there's still things you need to be doing right now. And again, that's going to depend on what your actual goal is. It's losing weight. You need to not be discouraged if the number on the scale isn't what you're hoping it will be in 2 weeks. Again, you still have some time. Don't get discouraged and give up. If you are preparing for a race and you have your training plan developed, this is not a time to start ratcheting up the intensity again, doing longer runs, doing faster runs. You should be in a tapering period to start allowing your body to rest and recover before the big day. If you're preparing for a marathon, the worst thing you can do is running a marathon a couple days before you do that. You're just going to ruin your body. You should have in your plan shorter, easier runs that are still helping keep your body in shape, but are starting to allow it to begin to recover so that you are completely fresh and ready to go, and more importantly, injury-free on race day. You don't want to wear yourself out and then ruin it on the big day because you overdid it beforehand. It's just like preparing for an exam in school. A lot of people try to cram it all in the night before, and they show up to the exam exhausted and too tired to actually perform. If you didn't do the work as you should have in the time period that was allowed to you to prepare for it, you can't make up for it the last minute. And you're just going to have to shoot your shot with what you've got. Because whatever the goal might be, if you start trying to cram in more now with the last week or so that you have on your training period, you could actually do something remarkably stupid that will prevent you from getting to your goal. Even if you're already 90 to 95% of the way there and it's just a few more steps, one misstep can make sure that you fall flat on your face before even reaching that finish line. And you can watch all the people pass you by. So this is a time period where you have to be especially careful to not injure yourself. And again, this goes for all types of goals, whatever it might be, and because you can injure yourself in many ways. If your goal relates to any kind of physical activity, trying to race faster, lose weight, lift more, there are so many ways for you to injure yourself in this last stretch as you try to push yourself harder and harder to get to that goal. You can lift too much and tear a muscle or really throw off something in your back. You can push yourself to running too hard or too fast and get a stress fracture in your foot. You can really try to gun for those last few pounds and get yourself into some really deep water with some really bad eating habits that you do not want to contend with. Just generally, with any kind of physical activity, you can really push yourself too hard, and actually over-exercising and exercising too much can be lethal. Just look up rhabdomyolysis. It's a perfect example of the consequences of a real-life example of having too much of a good thing. Exercise is great for you. Too much of it, like everything else, isn't. If you're working hard on some kind of project for yourself, at your job, whatever, you can also push yourself too hard there. You might be sacrificing more hours of your sleep every night, trying to pull multiple all-nighters in a row, really chugging down the caffeine and any other kind of stimulants to keep yourself going. Denying yourself adequate rest and recovery, especially when you pile on stimulants and other things on top of it, the long-term consequences of that, if you do it for too long, can actually be lethal as well. If you've been working hard all this time, don't ruin it for you by trying to push even harder now to get to that finish line. Not only will you deny yourself the pleasure and accomplishment of achieving that goal, you may also make it harder to get back in the saddle to set yourself a new goal and get working on that, because you'll have created a feeling of disappointment for yourself for having failed to achieve your original goal. You're going to worry that you're going to do that all over again. You're going to set yourself up, do a lot of hard work, get excited for getting nearly there to achieve it, and you're going to worry that you're just going to screw it up again. You may also just be way too burned out from what you'd put into achieving that first goal to even want to think about trying to do something else or trying again at the original goal if you didn't make it. Burnout can be very damaging both physically and psychologically for you to try to get back in that saddle and try again. But again, you need to be pushing towards your goal right now, but pushing too hard can injure you in some very serious ways. Just think about how often we hear stories about people who cross the finish line at major marathons and then just drop dead. We even have one of those stories very close to home with us at Fit and Able. We've got a race photo that was on our fridge for years from the New York Marathon that my mom ran over 25 years ago. It's Coach Elisa. You've all met her at our races or at her practices, so don't worry, she's perfectly fine. But after the race, she read a story about a guy who was running, and as soon as he crossed the finish line, he dropped dead from a heart attack, and they were not able to revive him. When she saw his finish time, she realized that he was only a few seconds behind her. And when she looked at the photo that had been hanging on our fridge, she realized the guy who was just a few steps behind her in that photo was the guy in this story. Obviously, it's a very tragic story because in this photo, you can see him accomplishing something that you know he worked so hard for a very long time. Maybe this was his first major marathon. Maybe he had wanted to run the New York Marathon for a very, very long time. And he did the work to not only qualify for it, but to get to that start line and then get to that finish line. But that was it for him. That was the end of his story. He pushed himself so hard that his body gave out. Now, is that likely to happen to you, that as soon as you achieve your goal, you expire? No. It's a very extreme case, but you don't need to die to have very serious life consequences. But you don't need to die to have very serious life consequences that can be very damaging to you moving forward. At the same time, this isn't to discourage you from continuing to work hard and push yourself towards that goal. Key words are keep pushing, but don't push too hard. Keep doing the work. You're going to get to your goal. Even if you only get 95% of the way there, you've done an amazing thing. If you only get 80% of the way there, you've still done an amazing thing. You've done more than most other people will, and you got to keep that in mind, and that should keep you excited and encouraged to keep moving forward in this final stretch. Because no matter what, you've still come a long way from where you started, and that is awesome. And that will set you up to do even bigger things for the next goal you set, which we're going to talk about next week. So on that note, keep pushing towards the finish line. You're almost there. But don't push yourself so hard that you'll do something that will cause you permanent damage and deny you the pleasure of achieving that goal. Part 12, the finish line, drops next week. As always, if you enjoyed the content, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment below. And if you know anyone who this might benefit, please share it with them. And as always, thank you for racing with Fit and Able.